All I'm saying is 3 fists. That's all at once. That's all of the imagination that it took. Captain's Pod, Stardate 133154.1. Welcome aboard the Starship's Enterprise, and thank you for joining us as we take a brief shortly from the world of CinemaSins to explore the universe of Star Trek. I'm your Captain Ian Whittington, and with me as always, she assures me the cards are sufficiently randomised. It's Ambassador Deneé.
I can do a pretty good shuffle.
You taught me how to shuffle, actually.
Yeah, the bridge.
Like the
I taught you to do the bridge.
I couldn't do that, and I've broken so many cards.
You've not broken cards, have you? That's really difficult to do.
You didn't find them. That's the genius. You didn't find the ones that I broke. And he could have done this 100 times. It's impossible to tell. It's Jonathan Watkins. Can you name the episode that both of those quotes are from?
No, I had no idea what you were talking about. I kind of didn't listen to all of it either, I'll be honest. But no, I'm kidding. No, I knew you were going for something, but no, I can't think of what that is. I'm so bad with quotes.
Oh, let's try to give him some more quotes and see if he gets it.
Okay, we've got no help for the Klingon.
All hands abandon ship.
All hands abandon ship.
Wait, what was the first thing you said?
The first one was, she assures me the cards are sufficiently randomized.
This is from an episode or a movie?
This is from
an episode.
An episode of TNG.
Sometimes I think he's stacking the deck. I am experiencing Nipah.
Yeah, what's the one?
That sounds familiar. It's not Cupid, is it?
No, not Cupid. Stop looking through the episodes. Stop looking through the recent episodes that we've done.
Yeah, that's too much work. No, Cupid's the one, though. That's the one where he's like, I am not a merry man, right?
Yeah. I must protest. I am not a merry man.
That's like the only thing I remember from that episode. I don't remember being very good. No, I have no idea. I'm sorry.
So it's the only episode that Kelsey Grammer appears in.
Cause and Effect.
Yay!
Yeah, there we go. That was a big clip.
The reason I know that I haven't listened to the episode, but I think that was in the cold open, and I had to listen to that to post it.
Yeah, that would be. I can't remember what I.
All right, no, I was listening. I think I was listening to where to put because you had put the wrong time, because you do this sometimes. You'd put the wrong time for the break, so I had to
Did I?
read him for filth.
I had to search around, and I heard something about Kelsey Grammer, and I was like, oh yeah, Kelsey Grammer was in this fucking episode. I forgot about that.
He was, right at the end.
Jonathan, I'm so happy to have you on board. What is
Thank you.
Jonathan's title?
Oh, it's changed.
Yeah.
It was like ensign, acting ensign. I think you can be lieutenant now if you want. It's been long enough. You can be Lieutenant Jonathan Watkins. Where would you be on the ship? What would be your role?
On the ship?
You could be anywhere on the ship.
I would not be a security.
Start with the stuff you know you won't want.
I don't think I'm smart enough to do maybe I would learn to fly the ship. That might be my.
What about like engineering? I feel like you'd be really good at engineering.
Yeah, let's do engineering. Yeah, as long as I was just like changing the light bulbs or something. That'd be me. I wonder if they have just like standard light bulbs.
Like if they have like ship maintenance.
Yeah, I would be lower decks. I don't know why I was even. I don't know why I was pretending anything else. No, that's fair. I'd be cleaning the holodeck.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I'm a terrible mopper though. That's like I'm really good at house cleaning, and like I do a lot of the house cleaning around here because we work from home, and so I just it just makes sense that like when I have time I just clean here and there, but I'm terrible at mopping. We literally pay somebody to come here just because I can't mop.
Well, it's great. Most of the ship is carpeted, so if I see you with a mop, I will throw you out of an airlock. You can hoover the deck. For anyone that doesn't know, Jonathan Watkins is a fellow CinemaSins writer and Star Trek fan as well.
Yes.
And when I discovered that this week's episode, Little Green Men, is one of Jonathan's favorites, we had to beam him aboard.
Yeah, it is. It's one I always remember.
Before we get into the episode, let's do a couple of emails. Emails. Okay, hailing frequencies open, everyone. It's time for us to read your emails from Discord, Twitter, and, well, email. The first one isn't an email, it's an audio message, and I don't think we need to spend too much time on it. It's just simply entitled, Ian was right. Here we go.
Captain, Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
Good morning, Ambassador Deneé and Captain Ian. This is Lieutenant Junior Grade Nick, aka Jagged 2319, sending you this Priority 1 message all the way from the lower decks and the live chats. I just wanted to say Ian, I owe you an apology.
What?
After much thought and consideration, after all the crap I gave you during the live show while watching Cause and Effect.
So I made a point that in the time loop situation, super duper quickly, if you haven't listened to last week's episode, in the time loop, the Bozeman and the Enterprise have both been in the time loop for 17 days. Nick argued that the Bozeman had been in the time loop for 80 years, and that when the Enterprise joined, it was a new time loop, or there was 17 days. It was different. But the point is that the Bozeman comes out of the past.
Are we
An
really
explosion
going to do
creates a
this
time
again?
loop, blah, 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 blah. There we go. Basically, I was right.
It has occurred to me that I was completely wrong. That it is more likely that the Bozeman came through a space butthole through time and skipped over 80 years, and that they themselves were not stuck in a loop for 100 years. And that the Enterprise crashing into it in the portal's spot is the thing that caused the time loop. You have opened my eyes, sir.
Wow.
I bow before your superior
Continue.
intellect in Star Trek knowledge.
No, Nick.
Please,
We're
Nick. Please
bowing
continue,
now.
Nick. No,
Nick.
this is the best part. This is my
Lost
favorite bit.
all
Continue.
respect for
Continue.
you.
No, no.
I am ashamed and I apologize. Someone once said, don't try to be a great Star Trek fan. Just be a Star Trek fan and let history decide. Well, sir, history has decided that you are a great Star Trek fan.
And Nick picked a quote from my favorite Star Trek movie, First Contact. So extra
Are we-
points to Nick.
My-
Extra
We're
points.
basing how great a Star Trek fan on how nitpicky you are about.
Yes, welcome to CinemaSins Captain's Pod. Yep.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Our little corner
That
of
makes
the
sense.
world where we meet Star Trek is a very unique experience.
Well, I grew up on the nitpicker guides to Star Trek, so yeah, I'm
There you
sure
go.
Ian has all of
I'm
them.
born for this.
It's right there. I got it next to
Oh,
me.
that's like a newer one. Yeah, I have like the old. Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
Phil Farrand actually lives in St. Louis in Missouri. Like, I want to go and meet him.
Yeah, that was like when we started doing, when I first, the CinemaSins thing, that was immediately what I thought of was like, the nitpicker's guides to the galaxy or whatever. I think he even ended up doing
Awesome.
like other shows too, didn't he? Maybe like Battlestar,
Yeah, he-
Galactica or something like that. Maybe I can't remember.
Yeah, the reason he got into Star Trek
Or
was because he
X-Files,
started
maybe?
doing. Yeah, he started doing Star Wars, and they basically shut him down and said, "Nope,
Yeah.
you're not doing this." So he was like, "I'll try the other Star franchise then, and I'll do Trek."
He has like I always like the he goes off a lot on the what do you call it, the way they talk to each other, the badges, like
Oh, the comm badges.
yeah,
yes.
like how
whether you
those
tap
actually
them,
work.
whether you don't. Yeah, Does it need to be tapped or does it not?
Yeah.
What are we doing here,
and then
people?
some people tap them twice, and it's
Yeah, exactly.
like open my
Oh,
world.
I love it. Yeah. Okay, a little bit more from Nick.
My eyes are uncovered. I believe that as a result of my transgressions, I shall be on holodeck recycling duty for the next several rotations, and I accept the punishment willingly. Love listening to the show. Love being a part of the live show every week in the chats. Keep up the good work, and live long, and Podsper. Oh, and Deneé, I cannot stress how relieved I am that you have finally come around on Jedzia. Just nothing was more stressful to think that you disliked one of the best characters. Anyways, talk to you guys later. Have fun.
God, I'm terrified to say anything. Now this guy's gonna get upset.
Oh, it's okay. You just have to let you be passionate about what you're
Well,
passionate about.
Ian told me you didn't like her, and I know the way he told me, I could tell he thought I was gonna be really upset, and I was just like, okay. I mean,
I'm glad my parents didn't raise me on Jadzia.
like whatever. Like I'm not gonna get I'm not dying on a hill for Jadzia Dak.
I will.
Maybe
I
Terry
also
Farrell,
don't
but
know that I've come around on
Yeah, no,
her
I don't think you
as
have
much
yet.
as-
No.
Let's say that there's like 0 is neutral and I started off in the negative. I feel like I'm back at like 0 to 10. I'm in that
Yeah.
range. I'm not at 100% love, but I'm also not in the negatives
Yeah.
anymore. I have very little experience with this
Do you-
character.
You still don't have a lot to base it on, to be completely fair.
Deep Space Nine's interesting. There's so many interesting characters on that show that like I don't know that I really have a favorite. I just kind of like them all. Like
Yeah, it's
I
a
mean,
great
they're just
show.
kind of they
It's
all
so
have
good.
their things that That I think some of the other shows, it was a little easier just to pick somebody because they had more to do. Like nobody's picking Geordi. I'm sorry, Geordi had nothing to do.
Oh, ouch! But fair.
I love LeVar, but come on.
It's so
even
good.
LeVar complained.
Yeah, not given enough to do. He always wanted a love interest.
He finally got out of the visor. I was really happy for him when he showed up in the movie with no visor on. I was like, good for you, man.
Bold move for First Contact to lose the visor. That's like making Data human almost. It's pretty bold.
Or like having Data have sex with Tasha Yar, you know.
Yeah, no, that's not at all bold. Allegedly. We never saw the act.
That's true, because it was television and in the 80s. So.
Okay, this next email I didn't really have any choice but to read because it's so good and I love the effort that went into it. So I'm just going to pull up this little visual for you. And podcast listeners, you can go to CSPN if you want to see the visual. We had an amazing email sent in from Bethany, who has put it into the LCARS format. It has a subject header. It has a starbase. The amount of effort that went into this is glorious. It's like an official
document.
It's so official. It doesn't matter what the content is. The effort that went into the actual LCARS-iness of it is amazing. But it helps that it's a really fun question as well. So Bethany says, the subject matter is, I have no common sense, yet I figured out warp drive, which is I forgot to mention this, but I have thought about this question multiple times. And the question is this. Good day, Captain. Good day, Ambassador. One of the things I appreciate about Star Trek is that it uses some actual scientific principles and theories. I can sometimes follow the principle, but I'm nowhere near being able to understand how it works. Yet, in Lower Decks, the Packlets, who blindly follow the person with the biggest hat and flush themselves out airlocks because they think it's a toilet, have already figured out how to apply these theories. I don't know if it's humbling or insulting that our greatest scientists and engineers are still dumber than a pack of Packlets. My question is this. Is there an alien species in the Star Trek universe that you look at and wonder how in the world did you figure out warp drive? Now, the answer for the Packlets is that they stole it somehow. So we find out in TNG that all of their technology has come about by them stealing it. They don't fully explain it. It's really that their language isn't developed, not that they themselves are stupid. But I do love this question. Ambassador, we'll go to you first. From your knowledge of Star Trek so far, which alien have you come across that you know is traveling the stars, and you're still like, you've got a warp drive?
I have never had this thought in my mind once.
You need to watch more Star Trek.
This is the first time that I've thought about that. I think I remember that when a civilization or when a species reaches a certain level, then they're visited by the Federation, and I think it's when they achieve warp drive, right? Isn't that when the Federation comes for a visit?
Usually the trigger point, yeah. That's the Prime Directive. That's the safe point where we can tell you we exist, because you're going to find us.
Yeah. So we're going to find you first, and we're going to... Is the Federation a cult?
It's not a cult. It's an organization. The UN isn't a cult. It's a government body. Not government.
Yeah,
it's
but
a
the UN's
combined
not
body.
That's very different. So hold on. My brain's... Okay.
The UN and the Federation are very similar.
Okay, but the Federation's like, you just achieved this. We want to touch base with you first before anyone else gets to you.
I mean, that's the cynical view of, before the Klingons recruit you, yes, we're going to get to you first. Or the Romulans or whatever. Yeah. Depending on whose territory they fall into.
Interesting. Something for me to think about.
But don't some planets, they ask the Federation to be... I mean, the Federation doesn't go after them. They go after the Federation, right?
Yeah,
like they're like, hey, we want to be a part of...
Yeah, some of them apply for membership. Yeah, so it's not like you've got warp drive, we're coming for you immediately. Sometimes it happens and they reach out.
I'm going to steal one from the chat, and I'm glad that you waited until we had a live chat, because I think that if I had a lot of time to remember everything, I would probably land where Flyboy lands, which is the Tamarians. How can you do anything technical or scientific if you only communicate in metaphor? And the reason that I would pick this one is I remember when we did this episode, our conversation evolved to this very topic of how do you convey anything?
Anything really
know.
Technical and specific, yeah.
Is that the Darmok?
Yeah, that's the Darmok people, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's where I would go.
I don't. There has to be some other layer to it. Like my favorite argument that we heard from the chat is that the ruling class and like the higher ups use this very formal speak, but the engineers and the lower deckers are actually just talking outside of metaphors, and that's how they got everything done. But it's the front forward people that are like really grand and use these metaphors.
Yeah, it would definitely be tricky.
Yeah, really tricky. Jonathan, what would your answer be?
I apologize. You guys showed me this email the other day, but I didn't realize we were going to be answering it. So I hadn't really thought about it. I was trying to think about it then, and I couldn't really come up with anything. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the humans.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one. How did we get our shit together?
Did the salt vampires? Did they have?
No, the whole point was that it was stranded on a planet, so it had to keep Dr. What's his name alive.
I guess the Horda didn't have it either.
Nope.
Yeah, humans. Humans is my answer.
That's amazing. Mine, it's not a strong argument. I don't know if this would hold up in court, but for me, it's always been the Klingons, because scientists, and me and Jonathan talked about this the other day.
Oh, that's true. That's a good one, yeah.
Scientists in the Klingon Empire are derided. They are like mocked. And this we see this happen in episodes where there's no honor in being a scientist. So how did you develop weapons, the plane, anything? And I know you're always going to have a subset of people that say, fuck the establishment. I don't care if this is dishonorable. I'm going to be a scientist. But then how did the Klingons get warp drive and are basically at our level, the Romulans level, and the Vulcans level of like warp drive and that kind of technology? In theory, if they just have a tiny, tiny group of society that's focusing on technology, I would think it would take them way, way longer to make any kind of progress, because they're constantly getting killed by the warriors. So the Klingons is always one that I'm like, how are you so technologically advanced if you hate science?
Well, and going back to humans, though, that's interesting, because the episode we actually watched today, there's a whole bit of dialogue where the army guys, like, the military guys, like, you scientists, you're always up in the clouds or whatever he says. So, yeah. Yeah,
it's complete. I just don't know how the Klingons got around it. But yeah, great question. Love that, Bethany. Really appreciate the effort that you put into the LCAST presentation as well. Okay, Jonathan, you've obviously seen this episode before.
It's been a minute, but yes, I've seen it.
Ambassador, give us one prediction for what you think is going to happen. Little green men, we're in the time travel theme season. What happens in this episode?
Obviously, I can't predict that there's going to be time loops, time travel, timey-wiminess, because that's not really, that's not really playing fair. This is a booger episode. The little green men that live in your nose. So we're just going to see, pretty much everyone is going to have a cold of some kind. Just a lot of sneezing, a lot of blowing of the nose, some joke about the little green men that live in your nose. It's going to happen. And then, this is the episode where the common cold is cured.
Oh, yeah, they go back in time and cure the cold.
Yeah.
It's a Ferengi episode, though, so it's more likely to be they live in their ears than their nose. Although I guess the Ferengi have decent-sized nostrils, too. But
my oddly specific prediction will be something falls over, something big. Something big just kind of topples.
Falls over.
Yeah. Like I'm seeing the warp core room where people usually are, and then there's people fall off of it, but there's like a structure in my imagination that just falls
You've
over.
Actually kind of described with those two predictions another episode of Deep Space Nine, which is amazing. So we'll see how those predictions go. But yeah, looking forward to getting into this and to seeing why Jonathan loves it so much as well. But until then, we'll see you in 10 forward. It's time to head over to the holodeck. 3 to beam out. Welcome to 10 Forward, the part of the show where we grab something from the replicator and share our immediate thoughts and feelings on the episode we just watched. Most important question first. Lieutenant Jonathan, what would you like from the replicator?
Not a nuclear bomb.
I don't think
that could be a really cool drink, though, right? I don't drink anymore, so
that's a cocktail for sure.
Maybe like the non-alcoholic version of a drink, like a Shirley Temple version of the atomic bomb or something.
That's what I want.
That's what he's having. Ambassador?
After watching this episode, I really wanted a cigarette again, so I guess I'll...
Yeah, I had that feeling.
Smoking!
I guess I'll smoke one of those.
I almost said that, too, while we were watching, like, that looks...
Jesus Christ!
That looks amazing.
I do enjoy a cigar, and the one that the General has where it's clearly like a prop thing, but it's just that fucking end is so chewed up and nasty. I'm just like, you are just getting tobacco just in your teeth.
Yeah.
But I would actually like a tooth sharpener, but I want a brand new one.
Oh my god!
Not a second-hand
I already forgot about the tooth sharpener. That seems like 3 years ago for some reason.
Like, why would you do that?
Oh, he's so happy. Like, I don't know what that's doing for him, but it's doing something.
That was also, but it's like only the like 5th episode of the Worf on that show, and you're just like, what are they? What are they doing?
All we know is that Worf is a bit racist at the minute because he just shits on Ferengis every episode.
Let's let him sharpen his tooth. Yeah, he is kind of racist on Deep Space Nine. You're right.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only like like, hey Deneé, recap this episode. It's like, in today's episode we do dental drilling.
Speaking of which, Deneé, give us a synopsis.
Oh shit. The Ferengi travel back in time. One wants to take over the universe, and the others want to have sex with all of the women.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan, if you can sum that up any better, I challenge you. But I think that's the episode.
No, I mean, I think it's the I mean, I think it's worth mentioning that it's 1947. So essentially, it's Roswell, right?
Yeah, this is explaining Roswell.
So it's essentially the Roswell landing is the Ferengis, and eventually Odo, who I had actually forgotten was in this episode.
Completely forgot. Yeah, completely forgot he's the ex machina in this.
But he's kind of and he's not. I mean, he's not really needed. So other than he fights off a couple of guards. But
yeah,
I mean,
it might have been a pacing thing. It might have been Ira Stephen Bear was like, man, maybe we've got a bit too much Ferengi in this. Let's have Odo just turn up as a dog.
This is a Ferengi episode. If we were doing another season on like a species, this would definitely be in the Ferengi mix, because we learn a lot about the Ferengi that I did not know in today's episode.
So I will say I think somebody already mentioned how much they love Ferengi episodes. One of my least favorite things about Deep Space Nine most seasons were the Ferengi episodes. This is definitely an exception to that. And I think it's because it got out of the whole like, they're trying to please the Grand Nagus, or they're trying to take over the Grand Nagus, or they're trying to marry off somebody, or those always seem to be the plots of the Ferengi episodes, and it was all about like capitalism and all that kind of stuff, and that just didn't really interest me. Which I guess this kind of is too, but it's in a different setting. It's like, what if the Ferengi were in the 1940s? United States. Like
I love it because this is what would go down. This is what would happen. They would take advantage and capitalize. Literally.
And I love revisionist history like this. I think it's fun.
Me too. That is the less silly rendition. In this episode, we kind of like are going back to Earth time too. And I think that is always a smart thing for the writers to do, to bring all of the viewers like, oh, this is where we are. We're on Earth. We're watching the show. And this is what was really happening in Roswell. And, the idea that they had to fly into the bomb to get back. So like all these different fun, these little things. But yeah, this is a really interesting episode because it doesn't really, some of it's on Deep Space Nine at the very beginning. So you get a little bit of like what that show is about, but most of it is all on Earth, 1947.
And it's also interesting to me. I wonder how an episode like this plays today to like people that did not grow up watching like 1950s science fiction films and stuff, because a lot of those tropes are in this episode, like the scientist and the man and the woman that are engaged, I guess, and then like she has that line of dialogue where she's like, "You better tell him I'm your girl."
Yeah.
I mean, but that was very much in the vein of like that era, like that 50s sci-fi tropes and stuff. And so it was really, to me, like that's hilarious. But like I could see somebody that has not watched a lot of those movies being like, what the fuck is like, this is like sexist as hell. Like, but it's like kind of like that's the point. But it's hard for that to come across, I think.
Before we go into the episode, since we're talking about these two characters, I first of all wrongly predicted that one of them was going to die because they were like, I can't wait for us to get married.
Like takes her off the wedding.
Yeah, I kind of thought that maybe that was going to happen, but it didn't. And then I thought, are these two the parents of somebody that's going to appear in Starfleet later?
That's the other thing, isn't it? Where like, because they would have given us their name. They would have said, this is Chief Scientist
like
Picard.
Kirk's grandparents or something. I don't know.
Exactly.
This is Johnny Picard.
Yeah. Jacqueline Picard.
Yeah, who are these people?
Plus they're 400 years before. No, they're just, I think they're very much just there to play into that. I think this is like Ira Steven Behr and whoever writing this, I think they're probably like fans of this era of like science fiction and stuff. And I think they're just kind of playing with all the different tropes and stuff. That's my guess. I mean, maybe that could have been an intent, that maybe that was an idea at some point and then they just didn't do it. It definitely isn't what happens. I mean, I don't think so. I don't remember them ever coming back to this, but
no,
I think they were just playing around with.
It reminded me of the episode that we watched where Kirk goes back in time and has to wrestle with the woman dying.
Yeah.
What was that episode called?
City on the Edge of Forever.
Yeah,
maybe the best episode.
So similar.
The female character was just like this forward thinker, and then she dies. So I thought that it was going to go that direction, and it didn't. But yeah, today's episode was really strongly just like a lot of teeth, you know.
Just quick. I always feel sorry for Rom.
It was just a lot of teeth.
This was playing up the comedy and like how like just how ignorant like. And how like wrong-headed a lot of Americans were at that time, or the military was, just however you want to play it. This was definitely playing up all the comedy. This is not. There's nothing about this that is really supposed to be taken seriously, I don't think.
No, it's definitely a breather, take a break episode.
And it's a lot of fun.
Are we supposed to take Star Trek seriously on a weekly basis?
Yes. What kind of question is
some more
that?
than others. I mean, I definitely don't think this one definitely doesn't play into anything that happens after it, really. Other than Nog, we get more of the advance, talking about Nog going to Starfleet. Other than that, which you kind of get to see that this is like such a great like the first like half of season 4 is just like banger after banger basically, and
it's really
you
good.
get that 2-parter a few episodes after this where they go to Earth, Homefront, and like Paradise Lost, I think, which is where you really start seeing how the changelings are affecting everything. So I don't know. Anyway, so you kind of lead up to that a little bit, but other than that, I mean, there's not anything in this that you're going to carry on to future episodes.
No. And like you said earlier, I might be in the minority on this. I didn't really enjoy the Ferengi episodes either for the reasons that you mentioned, but this one is unique to me. Like,
yeah, it is.
This
is
really,
different.
really fun because. And it's part of what you said, Deneé, where they're bringing in really rapid fire some information I didn't know about the Ferengi. And I love the lore stuff. Like, I don't know if it's the first time it's mentioned, but we find out like about their concepts of heaven and hell and who's waiting for them.
The divine treasury.
They have to bid on their next
life. The
life.
blessed checker.
Yes, the blessed exchequer.
The celestial auctioneers.
It's so great. And it comes out so quick. Wait,
the celestial auctioneers that they have to bid for their new lives.
Yeah, to get reincarnated. And this throwaway line where Rom is like, could we be in the other place? And he's like, oh, the chancellery of the dam, or the vault of the dam.
The vault of eternal destitution.
And he's like, no, we're not there because the bar was in profit. And that tells you that it's not based on your good deeds or bad deeds. It's whether you end up in the black at the end. It's so great. Like, boom, all of Ferengi culture done.
So good.
So
that
good.
That part was delightful. And I was furiously typing because I was cracking
a massive lore dump just out of nowhere. Like,
let's just talk about that sequence right there. That's when this episode starts to sing for me. It was okay before that.
Yeah.
We get to, like, you've got the whole setup and why they're getting the ship and that they're really suspicious of why the ship is being given to them in such great condition. And then they go on their adventure. Then they realize the ship is indeed sabotaged. And then they have their, essentially their space crash, so to speak. And then they wake up in the past, and then they're acclimating to the past. And so it's kind of like all driving to get to what you said, Jonathan, the humor of this episode, which really starts when Quark wakes up. The officer calls on the phone and says, hey, it's awake. And then we realize that the translator is turned off. So we have this glorious back and forth confusion. We have this ape-like mimicry going on with the tapping of the heads and squeezing of the noses. And then Quark is like, how can I put this into my, to my advantage? And like you said,
so
Ian, that really quick back and forth, it gives us so much information about these people, and I really wish that they had spent more time on that in a way, but at the same time it would have super taken away, like maybe just little other lines here and there as they're figuring out where they are, but they figure out they're in the past pretty quick, I guess. I kind of if they would have wondered if they were in some sort of like Ferengi alternate universe and had just like a little bit more, I would have really loved it. But those few lines, the celestial auctioneer killed me.
So good.
Because that's what they were doing at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah.
They were auctioning off his belongings so that he could go to go off on his next like adventure. This kid. What a fun way to see what these people are all about. And like when Quark goes full on like, I'm gonna become the lord of this world, I'm gonna contact the Ferengi Empire, we're gonna do all this stuff. I was really proud of the episode for doing that, because it wasn't like, oh, let's protect the timeline. We usually see that because we're firmly in Federation, but this is different. This is a different environment. He is off the rails and fully embracing what he knows to survive, and I was really enjoying that part.
I mean, that's that's an interesting thing about Deep Space Nine too, is that it plays around with that, because you have these characters like Quark and Garrick, and they can be helpful, but they have motives, right? They have ulterior motives a lot of the time and stuff. And I think sometimes the show, to its detriment, had problems with this, because it would want Quark to be one way in one episode, and then it would want him to be another way in another one. It didn't really make a lot of sense. But I really like him in this, because I think it makes him it gives him a much stronger storyline. It makes him more menacing. And I find stuff like that interesting, because he is supposed to be a bad guy, basically. I mean,
yeah.
I totally buy that this is what Quark would do with
absolutely.
this situation.
100%.
Like, Rom keeps mentioning the bar, and he's like, fuck the bar. I hate that place. I'm there because I can't figure out what to do next. Like, I can have a planet. And, like, there's this running thing of Quark just wanting his own moon at some point. Like, all he wants is a fucking moon.
He's always looking for that next thing, like whatever it is. Like, he could care less about anything. He doesn't care about his family. Doesn't care about anybody.
This dome that he has, this massive, what I assume is a brain, and it's just hardwired for greed.
It's all skull. All skull.
You think it's all
It's all
skull and
skull
one
and a
pea
tiny,
brain?
tiny little brain.
I don't remember, because it's been a while since I've just sat down and watched a bunch of Deep Space Nine. I always found the stuff with him being so opposed to Nog joining the Federation, joining the Starfleet, to be a little like, I mean, not racist, but I just found it to be a little, like, it didn't even really seem like something he would be upset about. Like, I would think he would try to figure out a way to use that to his benefit.
Yeah, you would think.
Yeah, so that stuff's in here a little bit, and I don't really enjoy that part. I don't know if I'm in the minority here. I don't like Rom very much. He's always been one of my
Which one, the brother?
Yeah, I've always found him to be.
Oof.
He's just like, he's supposed to be comic relief, and I just don't. I mean, I think Max Grodenchuk is a good. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, he's great.
I don't think he's a bad actor or anything. I think he does as good as he can with that writing, but I don't know, the characters. Yeah, he's just annoying, and his voice, his vocal stuff's annoying, and when he's moving or whatever, I was just like,
you're in the minority. Well, maybe not the minority. It depends on how
know.
Deneé thinks. I might be in the minority, but I really like Rom. He's irritating in the early seasons. In the pilot, he's completely different. He has a normal voice. He's more intelligent. And then it's a few episodes later where he becomes
too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's later on that he gets this persona. And I think he shines in later seasons.
I feel like he's kind of a shitty dad at the beginning. Like, he's kind of mean to Nog. And
well, I don't think they realized how much they were going to play with the Ferengi, because at this point, all we knew was like the TNG Ferengi, which was pretty two-dimensional. DS9 is where you get like the texture and the layers for it, and it kind of gives. Rom is very progressive, which is the whole thing.
And then who ends up becoming his wife? What's her name?
Is it Charisma Carp? No, not Charisma.
No, it's
Carpenter.
not Charisma. I mean, the actress, I can't remember her. It's not Charisma Carpenter, but I was trying to think. Is it Lita, something like that?
It's Lita, and I cannot remember the actress's name.
I hate that too, because she hosts I think she even has a Discovery podcast or something.
Chase Masterson.
Chase Masterson. When it gets to that, some of that stuff's fun between the two of them. I think I might like him more as it progresses, like you're saying, but he's still kind of irritating me at this point.
No,
or at least in this episode, he's irritating me.
This is my first time seeing this character.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And I vacillated, I guess is the word. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
I was emotionally like, this is a great character. Wow, he's really annoying. Why? Kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
Okay. And here's a couple things about this character that I didn't, this is, I think what they want us to feel is a deep sense of uncomfortableness, because that fucking snaggletooth is so different than any. I can't. Most of the time, I didn't know what he was saying because I was just looking at it. It didn't bother you guys at all?
No.
I guess I'm just used to looking at Ferengi, so I don't.
It bothers the heck out of me every time I see him because I'm like, even the actor's lip must be really hurting unless that's made out of rubber.
No, I didn't think about that. Yeah, you're right.
I'm sure it's rubber. I'm sure. But, the other Ferengi, they have sharp teeth, and obviously they sharpen them themselves because we have a tooth sharpener in this episode. And, and that's fine. But then there's this one, and it's sort of like laying on its side and like an iceberg, just sort of jutting in an odd angle. And I just kept thinking about it the entire time. And I wondered, does this set him apart from others? Like, what is the purpose of this? Because
just to make him look a bit derpy.
Yeah, that's my question. Is it an honor for Ferengi to have like one really quirky tooth?
I think he's just a derp. He's just the stupid trope. He's the comedic relief sidekick. So I think it just adds to that.
Is he though? Because he's super smart.
He can be both.
Well, see, that's another thing. That's another thing that was and like I said, I haven't watched consistent episodes of Deep Space Nine in a while, so maybe I'm wrong here. But like in this episode specifically, like when Quark's just like, "Oh, you're actually smart," it kind of almost felt like they made him smart because they needed someone to be smart in this episode, and that might might continue. I think it kind of does. I mean,
so at this point, he's in this transition phase between working for his brother and kind of being interested in helping out more on Deep Space Nine, because Quark sends him to give the ship a once-over because he knows that he's kind of an engineering genius. He always fixes the replicators, but like he says, it's that self-confidence thing. His brother has beaten him down that he doesn't volunteer this stuff, but later on he becomes an excellent engineer. And that stuff is inside him, and
he does
he's learning.
Do that stuff with O'Brien.
His language and his way of presenting himself looks very stupid, but he's very intelligent.
I didn't get stupid from him at all.
You probably wouldn't from this episode.
An interesting delivery, like his cadence, like you're talking about that kind of way that you're talking, So he kind of has that deeper sort of thing, and then of course the humor of that moment. But every time he was speaking, he seemed to have a real clear understanding of what was going on. And I could tell that Quark wasn't used to seeing his brother in that light, but I didn't get derp at all. In fact, I was so confused that because at the end of the episode, we finish with Odo taking Quark out of the lift. They get back to Deep Space Nine, and they're like, "Oh, I guess it's back to the bar." And Odo's like, "No, Quark, you're in trouble for what you did." And then the brother character, he kind of steps out and is like, "See you in a couple weeks."
Yeah, he's like,
and then it just sort of has
the
this.
Bar is all mine.
I didn't understand that expression. I didn't understand because it's also the slow, like the zoom up onto his face, which was looming. It was this.
Yeah.
It gave me the willy-nillys. I thought, it made me think that the brother actually set all this up to get the bar. Like the brother knew about, he was in on it somehow. That he's
like
nefarious.
he told Odo about the stuff.
I mean, there's different.
You might be right.
There's different types of like intelligence. He's not a great strategist. Like you put a phaser in front of him and he can pull it apart and put it back together. But he's not planning this. He's just happy that he doesn't have to put up with his brother's bullshit for a few weeks, was my interpretation, and that he can run the bar however he wants.
And like what Ian's saying, he does eventually get more involved in stuff on the station, and one of the commenters mentioned he ends up actually working with Chief O'Brien a bunch as one of the station's engineers. I understand all that happens. I guess what I'm just saying that I can't remember up to this point what I feel like he hasn't been that much of a part of the show up to this point.
It's very
and I think
gradual.
this is kind of where they start giving him his, if you want to call it an arc, but he definitely gets his. He becomes more of a character, and like I said, he becomes more of a part of the show. Deep Space Nine did this a lot. I mean, which was interesting because they also introduced a new character this season by bringing Worf on. But at the same time, they're giving Rom more to do. Garrick is a character that's going to become a lot more prominent, even though he's been on it off and on. That's the interesting thing about Deep Space Nine is how they kind of dabbled with all these other side characters. I also want to say, I was thinking about this when she was talking about Rom having a distinguishing. One thing watching this, I miss like this old style like makeup FX because but like every single one of them, like you can tell them apart, and like not just because of their size or anything. I mean, like they all have distinguishing features, even though they're all the same like race. right? And they do a really good job of like taking the time and the energy to actually give them each like their own like facial expression. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just,
and I
it's
can see each actor
yeah,
behind
exactly.
each prosthetic as well. They kind of accentuate their
Yeah.
natural features.
Yes.
I can see Armin, I can see Aaron, I can see Max. Like it's incredible makeup work that we don't see today.
Yeah, and there's
not in
definitely-
this same way.
Yeah.
Yes.
There, that moment whenever Quark squeezes his
so
nose,
good.
Yeah.
and all I'm thinking is like, don't break the foam,
Yeah.
don't break the foam.
Everyone
you know?
behind the scenes just like, don't.
Careful,
Why did you have to write this? And I'm sure it's Ira Bear just fucking with everyone. I'm going to dump a ton
Probably.
of Ferengi lore, and they're going to fuck up all of the prosthetics. Like, bend
I
the
would love
ears, do
to-
everything.
That scene
I
was
would love
so
to talk
funny.
to Ira
It's
Bear.
so good.
It was
So good.
so funny.
And I love that
Like-
we just get this sudden information drop of the universal translators being in their ears. And I'm like, oh
Inside their
shit, that
ears.
makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
That's
couldn't
amazing.
remember
I
if that
didn't
was
know
a thing before. I
think
yeah.
this is the first time we see that.
Yeah. There's a lot that happens in that sort of 10-minute range where Quark is sort of figuring out what he wants to do before we even know that Odo is on the scene.
Yeah.
And we're really the moment when the humans are trying to figure out what they're doing, like, I wonder if that's the son and the father. Oh, maybe Quark's the mother. Like,
What's their dynamic here?
yeah, and Quark's over there's like meh, 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 meh,
Yeah.
fussing around. So it was just really like cleverly done. I think some things that so Odo was hiding in the ship because he had his suspicions that something was wrong.
For sure.
Then he gets down and he like blends in with the world and becomes a service dog.
Yeah.
And then he ends up saving the day by getting them out, essentially, like kind of being a background man and getting them out. But the other two heroes are the scientists in this one. And this episode seems to really be like talking about, as we talked about Star Trek doing often, that humans are dangerous, where though we can figure some things out in a certain time frame, and that's really smart, and like we can abolish this and get past this in the Star Trek universe, we're able to advance as a society to this place. We're going back into our quote unquote primitive time, which isn't even our most primitive time.
Well, it's terrifying
And-
that these primitives have a nuke.
Right. And so this episode is touching on just those dangers. And we've seen other episodes talking about war and the dangers of war similarly, but this one doesn't quite go so on the nose with that. It also questions our smoking.
It's great,
And
isn't it?
just these other parts of like, you're putting off bombs and like, what's wrong with
You're
you?
poisoning
And here
your
we have-
planet and your body? What are you doing?
And Quark's view is like, if it was Picard, he wouldn't even be talking to them in the first place.
No.
He'd be freaked out that he was breaking some sort of timeline. But if it was Picard, he'd be giving them a pep talk. But it's Quark, and he's like, "How can I use this to my advantage? You guys are idiots. You are dumb, and I'm gonna,
If you'll buy
use
poison,
that."
you'll buy anything. It's so great.
Oh, yeah,
it's
it
such a
had to
great
be.
way
Like,
to
if this
sin
had been-
humanity.
If this had been like Cisco and Kira, it would have been a completely different episode, right?
Yeah.
It would have been more of a drama probably, or more of a thriller, as opposed to, being able to make it comical. But, it's interesting too,
yeah.
watching this after, we just, Oppenheimer just won, Best Picture as we're recording this. And, that movie is obviously very serious. And, but it's kind of interesting that the character traits, though, of the military men in this episode are not that off, right? I mean, they're basically the same characters. It's just one's in a comedy and one's in more of a drama.
Yeah, I was definitely getting the
wild.
Matt Damon vibes, definitely. But
Yeah,
you
exactly,
mentioned like if this had been Cisco and Kira, I think I wouldn't like this episode if it was
No, I don't think
humans,
so.
because the bit about time
No.
travel, and this frustrated me in Picard season 2, it frustrates me in Time's Arrow, is when you have humans from the 24th century coming back to the 1900s or whatever, and they have to be dumb about things that we know they know and that they've mentioned. So like, oh, what's this baseball card? I don't understand what this is, or not understanding the cigarettes or whatnot. But having it be Ferengis, I buy. Like, they barely know anything about human culture, let
they
alone
don't
human
care,
culture in the
right?
1900s. So
Yeah.
it's so much easier to buy and to do this like satire of why were
Yes.
we doing this? Why are humans so
Yeah.
dumb?
I thought that they did a clever job too of having this Nog kid who is trying to go to Starfleet be the one that gives them the misinformation at times as well, like calling them Australians
So
and
good.
just these little yeah. So we're kind of like just skipping over a repeat of a history lesson,
Yeah.
and we're going into what would happen if So the idea is that this is exactly what happened in America in 1947 in July at Roswell.
Mm-hmm.
This is the conversations that they heard. This was the weather balloon incident where a Ferengi showed up in our history and said, we have universal translators, we've got warp, we've got all this stuff, because he told them so much. And then we get to the point where we're going into let's torture them for information, and everybody's roles start to just flip around.
Yeah.
Now we have Quark, who's like, we're just friends. And we have the brother who's crying for his whatever.
Oogie.
And then we have Nog, who gets this harebrained idea to
So
invade
dumb.
Cleveland.
What a terrible plan this
and it
is.
works. And it works.
Doesn't though, does it? Because they have to elbow. Oh, it's so they're going to invade Cleveland. It's like, no, not Cleveland.
Which made me think
It's
of Howard the
amazing.
Duck for some reason, because Cleveland.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I was
The humans.
one thing I
Humans.
also thought of was
Mons, yeah.
this. Obviously, this was '95, so Independence Day doesn't come out till the next year in that summer. But oh my God, if they had
Oh,
made
that's
this
funny.
episode like a year later, I wonder if we would have had like a young Brent Spiner, version of that
Oh,
Brent
that's
Spiner character from
hilarious.
Independence Day. That would have
I
been
mean,
amazing.
they love slipping in Noonian
Yeah.
songs and sings everywhere, so
Yeah.
it wouldn't be surprised if one of Data's ancestors.
And we could have tied Independence Day. Like that's actually a
yes.
Noonian sing.
That would
We
be
didn't-
amazing.
Yeah.
Assumed.
Do you guys want to see the tamale or whatever he says on Independence
I
Day?
love that so much. That's my new headcanon. We may have covered it already, but Jonathan, what is it about this episode that really elevates it and makes it like you messaged me saying, "Oh, this is one of my favorites."
Yeah, no, it is. I love this. This is when, looking back now, I don't know that we knew it necessarily at the time. Like Deep Space Nine was really trying to find like a voice because it was really struggling to really distance itself from, and then the first two seasons, they had some really good episodes, but they weren't getting the viewers that Next Generation was getting. And then so in season 3, they like gave them a ship and, the Defiant, and they started kind of hinting at what the Dominion was going to be, and the Jem'Hadar got introduced and all that stuff. And then they decide to bring, Worf, and we didn't know what that was going to be like because, it's like, what is this going to change? And we eventually find out they do actually do a really, really good job of actually distinguishing Worf and actually making him a Deep Space Nine character, which is amazing. We're not quite there yet because we're so early on in this process. But I will say, knowing what I know now about Ira Stephen Bear and about how much he didn't give a shit about what Rick Berman said to him, this really feels like he's really finally just like, I'm just going to do whatever the hell I want. And so you get all this really interesting stuff because like we're going to have a few episodes from this. We get our man Bashir, which is a really weird episode.
So good though.
Yeah, and then you really start getting really heavy into the Dominion stuff. That really starts cooking this season, which eventually that's going to be all the shows basically focused on, especially in that last season. So it's really interesting. It's just a really interesting time. And I just remember this episode really stood out as like, this is nothing like TNG. Like this is, or nothing like, maybe kind of TOS, but it's nothing like TNG. And we're actually getting really involved into these other alien species, which I don't feel like the show had done enough, except maybe and they'd done some of that with the Kardashians and Bajorans, but it was really interesting getting to know more about the Ferengi, actually making the Ferengi more interesting. I think this episode makes Quark more interesting moving forward, probably Rom as well. I do love the, I don't remember if it actually ends up paying off well, but I remember at the time, I loved Nog going to Starfleet. I thought that was a great idea.
I think that pays off. Yeah.
And especially with because you would assume Jake is going to go, right? Because he's Sisko's kid, and Jake doesn't want to have anything to do with Starfleet. And then you've got Nog. I mean, I loved that dynamic, and I loved the Jake Nog stuff anyways, and I loved that scene with them up on the promenade, just have because that had become like such a common trope
just
on the show.
Their little legs just dangling off the promenade, just shooting the shit.
Yeah, and you realize like this is going to be one of the last times this happens, and it's just stuff like that. So at the time, like this episode really, really hummed. I still think it works, and I think a lot of, like I said, my love of like 1950s science fiction and stuff like that. How it plays in the tropes of all that. I think that's a lot of fun. I will say at 19, Megan Gallagher, who plays the female doctor in this, she was on a lot of television back then, and she was very attractive. And so, 19-year-old me enjoyed seeing her and things. So that was fun. She actually joins the cast of she joins the show Millennium, which is actually a spinoff of the X-Files, like about a year from this, I think. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, she plays Lance Henriksen's wife or ex-wife. I can't remember because it's been a while.
That's cool.
Also, I liked and I was really getting into X-Files at this time, and so this was a nice kind of play on that, because that was obviously
it feels like Scully and Mulder could turn up at any minute. It really does.
This kind of feels like them saying, this is our kind of like poking the bear a little bit with that. So that's fun.
I'm glad that you said that, because there's some things that I'll obviously experience totally differently popping in and out of these different shows. So Deep Space Nine, I've seen a few, like a sprinkling of episodes here and there. I've never seen the entire series, and certainly not from start to finish. They're very much out of order and sort of more in the season and the topic that we're going over. But what I love about doing this is that it's testing how the writers and how the people who are shooting it, just the production entirety of the single episode can draw somebody in and keep their attention for just one episode potentially. And are they going to tell a good story without needing a lot of the context? And from what I'm learning, the earlier Star Trek was very specifically episodic. Deep Space Nine is very specifically more seasonal in that experiment of that longer storytelling, but you still have to do something in the smaller episodes to kind of capture someone and keep them centered. And in this case, we only had that beginning of the episode to see Deep Space Nine world, and I thought they'd do such a good job. I'm always really impressed because this cast is so different than TNG. It's such a different space to ask these people to kind of bring to life every episode. In this one, we only see Worf for a split second, but I learned so much about what's happening in this moment for him, that he's still sketchy about Ferengis. That moment when he does find something to potentially have in common with the Ferengi, and there's this smile between the two of them, this young Nog character that has probably been on this station his whole life, and maybe him finding enjoyment in quote unquote winning someone over to not just the Ferengi side necessarily, but just even beginning that relationship. And then, like you said, with the kid, is that Sisko's kid?
Yeah, Jake Sisko.
Is that right? I think I remember that he was a writer in the future or something like that.
Correct.
Yeah. So then you've got what is clearly their friendship. And I didn't need a ton of screen time to tell me that, but it did seem really important to the writers to give that to these two characters. And I love to see how much care the writers and the people who produce this put into this kind of material, because, I mean, it's obvious why it's loved when it's cared for like that. And we get to see all these different things that they just really quickly deliver the lines. There's another character who had her items stolen, and Nog was like, Kira. Oh, how funny, it was here the whole time and you just didn't notice it. And those little things give us so much about Deep Space Nine. So even though we didn't spend a ton of time on the station in this episode, they still did a really good job of telling us in the overarching world of Star Trek where we belong in this series, because then taking us out and putting us on Earth 1947, that was really, really fun. But if you wanted to come back and see what life is like on the station, we now know some really interesting things. We know that Odo is kind of like the police of this area, and he's pretty strict, and he's gonna follow you and shapeshift. That was fucking cool.
Oh, I love it.
You know that there are rules. So even though Quark is clearly gonna take everything over, there's still some guidelines. And so that's another reason for me to kind of be more curious about Deep Space Nine every time we pop into it.
It's so
really
hard
different
for me to not just go from episode 1 and take you through, because it's so it's such a serialized show, and that bucks the trend of what Star Trek is so much. But it's so it's
what
good to
it
watch
used to be. It's very serialized now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so fun in its individualness, but it has so many layers when you watch it all back to back. It's a really
Did you even catch that Did you even catch that bit where Deneé, where they looked at that picture and it was Sisko from the past?
Oh my goodness.
That was a
Yes, I
whole like
did.
2-part episode in the previous season where Cisco went to the past and actually kind of became part of the past because of
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
funny.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah, hey,
that's
doesn't this
clever.
look like a
And it was, I
captain?
mean, it was just kind of a wink to it. It wasn't
But
like
what-
you had to know that for that to work.
What I liked about that is that Quark is like, all humans look the same. And he just,
Yeah.
Quark is a wonderful character.
He is.
Like,
Oh, and
I don't
Shimmerman's
know
amazing.
that I have really. If we did a character study, we don't need to do a character study on Quark because this episode's almost all you need to know about him. He is so greedy
yes.
and self-centered, and I love it when a show lets a character like that get into
Be
the
flawed.
driver's seat.
Yeah, be flawed and do his flawed things in the lead. There's not some arbitrary thing at the end where he's like, oh, I suppose I should protect the timeline. It's self-preservation. It's, oh, they're going to kill me if we don't get back to the future.
This is a whole other bag of worms to open. But the one thing about Quark I've always never really gotten a firm grasp on is how is he really, like, is he able to make money? Like, because, like, how do you sell food on a station where people have access to
Yeah.
replicators?
So it's I guess the similar thing was you could have a beer at home cheaper, or you can go to a bar and be social and
guess.
it costs a bit
But
more. I think it's
we don't have
it's a similar
replicators.
sort of thing. Yeah, but I think it's a similar kind of concept. You're paying a bit of rent to be
and
there
maybe
in the
you
bar.
only have I assume you have credits or something. Like I assume you can't just
Yeah.
replicate whatever you want all the time. I assume you don't get paid because they don't do money the same way. But
Yeah, so I mean, it's the humans are the ones that have gone beyond money, but the
Yeah,
rest of the
that's true.
galaxy hasn't. So
they
they
still have visitors
to
to Deep Space Nine that are
Yeah.
not Federation. That makes sense.
exactly,
I guess.
yeah. And
But I
then
would
they
say,
have
like,
some kind of
Bashir,
agreement.
Like I'm like Bashir's in there like having dinner. I'm like, you could have just had this at home and not
Yeah,
paid
you could have had this in
anything.
your quarters, you jerk. Where are you getting the
And
money
how do you
from?
even have money? Like,
Yeah.
where's your money coming from?
Did you just sell your shoes to get
That's
that
a whole
meal?
other. That had nothing to do with this episode. I apologize.
No, it's great. It has to do with Quark,
Yeah,
and I
but-
find him really, really fascinating. And I'm glad that there's a place for
Yeah, it's cool.
something like this
Mm-hmm.
at the forefront of an episode where I really didn't feel it lull too much.
No,
Did you
it
guys
clips
feel
along.
like it
No,
downshifted
it
the
just
plot?
moved.
I didn't either.
No, they
Nope.
were definitely, like I said, this season they really started. They were just firing on all cylinders. It's like such a breezy. Most, I mean, there's 26 episodes or whatever, so you're gonna have bad ones. But
so
Yeah.
many episodes. It's insane.
yeah, I do wonder though. Like, and I know this isn't. I'm not trying to like just shit all over Discovery and Picard. I like parts of those too. But I will say it's always interesting to me when I go back and watch like something like Deep Space Nine, and then I watch like the present stuff, and I'm like, why are you guys having such a hard time with the serialization when you had a show that you already did it on really well? I don't know. Maybe it's
Yeah.
Ira Stephen Bear. Maybe they need him. I don't know. But
Well, I think it's a compromise as well. Like
Yeah.
it isn't all serialized like this. There's plenty of, even in season 7, there's still standalone episodes. Like there is a middle ground there that can be. That
well,
can be
especially when you have
explored.
that many episodes. Yeah, like
Yeah,
you're saying.
exactly.
Like there'll be a random episode where Cisco plays baseball with some Vulcans or something. Yeah.
We have to do that
Can-
episode.
Ugh.
Can we? Is it a sin or is it not a sin that there's so much sexual stuff in this episode? Can we talk about
Welcome
that
to
real
Deep
quick?
Space Nine. Yeah. No, go
Like-
for it.
That's why I'm really upset we never got a Deep Space Nine movie because I think we could have had our first R-rated Star Trek.
It
film.
would have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, there would have been absolutely been some scenes. So if we start off where this kid sells his porn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have hollow suites. Quark has
Yeah.
hollow suites, is what he calls them. They're not hollow
and
decks.
he's like, here's my pleasure. Like, so to me, I'm thinking, would you want like? At some point, you're going to go into this pleasure wherever, and you're going to stop, and your brain's going to go.
Nog was
this
here.
is
Nog
what
was
Nog
here.
was
Yeah,
doing.
uh-huh.
Like you need to have your own program. So selling that, first of all,
I don't want a
is-
15-year-old kid's porn. I don't.
No.
But,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Totally
I was like,
agree.
that's
And
Jadzia
Dax was
is
the
like,
one.
yeah,
Dax
she's
was the one that bought
buying
it,
it.
man.
It's like, what are you
Yeah.
doing?
Dax is the most open to all this
doctor.
stuff because she's been many people. The
Yeah.
episode before this is Rejoined, right? I think the one where
That
we
sounds
meet
right.
her former lover
Yeah.
when she was a man.
Former partner. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, partner.
and
Yeah.
and then we get to Earth, and Dad's just watching his son get.
Nog's just
ear
getting
jacked.
like pleasured in front of his dad, and all his
And
dad
then
can
wants
think
to do
about
it
is when is
himself.
it my turn?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's.
Hey,
no, that's
at
all sins.
19, I wanted to be those years. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, completely fair.
At 48, I wouldn't mind being them either. But
You cut the line somewhere at
Yeah.
35.
Just different cultures, I guess. You know.
Yeah, don't judge. Don't
Dad's
judge.
over
Deneé.
there like, oh, why didn't I think of that?
Well, they do mention that, and we do know this already. But the Romulan, the Ferengi females all walk around naked, so maybe they're just more sexually open as well. Like they're used to seeing the naked form and are just more open about that kind of stuff. Maybe it's a carryover
that's
from
true,
that.
yeah.
The nakedness to me does not. So I understand that like nakedness and sexuality in American culture hand in hand.
Mhm.
There's like it's a part of our culture. It is not okay. I don't agree with it, but that's just kind of how it is. So you know that Deep Space Nine talking about the Ferengi having naked women is intended to tantalize a little, like in that regard. I would like to think that to them it's genuinely no big deal, but then how sexual this kid is, I'm like, oh no,
true.
maybe this is
No, it
they're
definitely
sexualizing.
No, yeah, and the Ferengi don't treat their females well at all. I mean, that's definitely that.
I mean,
that's
they call them
that's
females.
Yeah, they call them females, and they don't take them seriously. And it's not. I mean, there's been like female Ferengi episodes, I think, where they've had, they've tried to make strides or whatever. But I mean, that's kind of the whole thing with their culture.
They do.
That is definitely making a comment on that kind of barbaric type thing. Whereas, like, I think like the Beta Zeds are kind of like that's a more like open society.
Yeah, they're super kind of
because they can get in each other's minds and they know what each other's feeling. So that's more of a like openly sexual, like everything's fine. We don't.
It's kind of like the Ferengi are. It's just more manipulative than.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it was just a very uncomfortable part of the episode for me, not because I'm uncomfortable with nakedness or sexuality, but it's just
I
like,
understand.
wow, this is they're very forward.
Thing. Yeah.
They're very forward in their I don't know.
Sensuality.
No, that's a
fair
fair point to make. I cannot imagine my dad and I would have gone for like the same woman. Like that would be super odd. And there's nothing wrong with that being weird. I think that's totally weird.
And I think like if Deep Space Nine is thinking we're going to say it. We're going to say sex. We're going to say these things that maybe TNG would have never said. And we've seen it in recent episodes too, where they've been more forward with like the sexual part of relationships, and that's fine. But in the Ferengi world, I wonder if the writers are thinking like, let's just keep pushing the PG-13 forward and do more sexual stuff without realizing that like in the context of Ferengi, they're going for a joke, but
it's
they're
still
making
weird.
things uncomfortable in a way.
It's a time period. I mean, you have to understand too. The network television is going through a really interesting phase right here because, like, for the longest time, up until like into the 90s, like the primetime showings, like anything that was starting at 7 Central, 8 o'clock Eastern, whatever, that first hour had to be family oriented, which is why you always had like sitcoms and stuff. And then I think like in the mid 90s, maybe like Melrose Place started airing at 7 o'clock and like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And then all of a sudden we're kind of getting away from that. And then you got like NYPD Blue is having like sex. People are having sex. There's nudity. I mean, kind of nudity for 1993 or whatever.
Right.
And then stuff like ER and eventually like CSI, where you're seeing like all this like medical stuff, and you're seeing like more blood, I guess, more more
trauma.
More
like
trauma.
Physical body trauma.
Yeah. And so Deep Space Nine's kind of in like TNG's kind of, they're submitted kind of in that earlier stage. And then they're kind of towards the end is when all that starts getting changed. But TNG's kind of already in its own element. Whereas Deep Space Nine's kind of coming into this where they can play around with things.
It's really interesting.
They can get away with things a little more. But which is funny because then Voyager kind of goes back to the TNG thing and just
very much.
But it's also, that's a Federation thing too. I think like you were talking about, you can explore more stuff with like a character like Quark because he's not in the Federation. He's not restricted
Different
to anything. He's trying to avoid getting in trouble by Odo, but other than that, like he can do kind of whatever he wants.
Yeah.
So
he's free. They're free range Ferengi.
Yeah.
Well, Deneé, do you know who you can blame for your uncomfortability?
The church.
Well, yes, but more yes.
Good answer.
Well, that's the cold open. More specifically, the inventor of Umax, the ear thing, friend of the show, Fred Bronson. So you can blame him for that.
Oh, he invented that?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
He wrote
Oh,
it into the game.
Umock.
Not the
Oh,
game.
okay.
Menage,
I
Is that
saw
the
Menage
ear
Troy.
thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
First appearance in Menage a Troy.
That's where they're most sensitive, right? Like that's their like.
One of their most erogenous zones, yes. Amazing.
Imagine having
That's your legacy, sir.
just two enormous
Yeah. Testicles. Nipples. Yeah.
folds of very sensitive skin attached to your fucking head.
Just a passing breeze.
Well, like, what if somebody like whispers to you or talks to you?
Yeah,
like, I mean,
bet
anything.
pushes them over the edge.
you know, you just like.
Flicks them.
Whoa. That's what I'm saying. It's like that. It would be desensitized.
Yeah, you would think
Oh,
so. You
yeah.
would think so.
That's probably why the dad is okay with it, is because the son needs to be desensitized as quickly as possible
Yeah.
just to even make it in
quit
society.
it.
You can't even go outside.
No. Before we move into the sins, I did want to just mention an email that we had from David, who is username Sci-Fi Brony in the live chat. And I don't know if you know this, Jonathan. I'm a big Back to the Future fan, but I did not know this about the end of Back to the Future, that the finale was supposed to be the DeLorean not driving past the clock tower in a storm, but it was meant to be the DeLorean driving into an atomic explosion.
I don't think I knew that. No, I don't think I've ever heard that.
And David sent me a video to the storyboard. Like, it got so far into production that it was part of the storyboard, but they cut it and made it the clock tower for budget reasons. But it's literally the same ending to this. Like, the Ferengi ship flies into the atomic explosion.
That's wild.
The DeLorean was going to do that as well.
I wonder if they knew that.
And that's what I'm wondering. Like, I don't know if that was a deliberate callback to the alternate ending for Back to the Future.
I mean, that makes sense because, you know, they go back to the 50s and all that. So that the nuclear explosion makes perfect sense that they
absolutely would have been happening.
But yeah,
I thought that's an absolutely fascinating alternate ending.
I'm glad they did the clock, I think, because that's such a beautiful sequence of events. But yeah, I think things worked out for the better. But yeah, that's funny. I don't understand how anybody gets back in time. Like, none of, like, going around the moon or the sun or
Superman,
it all makes the same amount of sense.
Yeah,
I can't even send it because I don't have the brain to like understand what's going on. I feel like they should all be dead, but maybe I'm wrong.
100%. I don't know how they survived the landing. One final line is that Quark manages to use his collective knowledge, everything that we've seen him learn on Deep Space Nine, when he's just like, yeah, we've been watching you people, root beer, baseball, darts, and atom bombs.
That's like all
everything
he knows.
He's learned from working in a bar. Like, that's his collective knowledge of humanity.
Because they don't care. They don't.
So
I mean,
good.
They didn't even. Because is Australia not a? Oh, I guess we can talk about that in Sins.
It's Australia. It's amazing. Okay, let's head over to engineering for some sins.
Warning. Warp core collapse in 10 seconds.
This is the part of the show where we re-engage our sin brains, remind ourselves that no time warp is without sin, even our beloved Ferengi Alliance. Jonathan, do us the honors and go first.
I mean, the universal translator always confuses me, but in this situation, I was very confused because even if they fixed it on their end, the humans still didn't have one.
Yeah, it's doing both ends of that.
Yeah,
we didn't mention how awesome, like, the backwards talking, different language thing was. Like, I think that's really well done.
But maybe that's possible because when they go to a planet that's like pre-warp, those people wouldn't have universal translators.
That's got to be how it is.
I guess
that means there's a speaker projecting their voice out of their own ears into the human ears.
Well, and then but then also, like, our perspective, we're still hearing them speak English, which doesn't make any sense anyways. Like, when it's not working, we're still hearing them speak English to us, but
when the humans are going vzz, 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 vzz.
I loved that part.
No, I did. I liked it, but I'm just confused.
I'm just remembering when it was like English overlaid with something else where I should be able to understand what she is saying, but I can't, and it's just barely in there. That was really
clever. Were you not thinking in Ferengi during that? I was thinking in Ferengi that whole time.
Oh, okay. That's what I should have done. Yeah. Maybe it's because I'm a female.
Do they have like books of all the languages somewhere? Do you think that's a thing? That I know, like Klingon, like you can learn to speak Klingon.
They do for Klingon. I don't know if they do for anything else. I think they have like guidelines around how the vowels and consonants sound, but not specific word by word dictionary and grammar and whatnot.
That would give me a headache trying to figure all that out.
Yeah.
I absolutely have the same sin as wandering from the chat. Worf trying the tooth sharpener. Just at all.
Just stop
Just
it. It's
at all.
secondhand.
It
You've
was
seen
so
Ferengi teeth.
It was so uncomfortable. Has it been cleaned? Has it been disinfected? When was its last use of another person? Why are we sharing dental things?
Yeah.
My daughter used my toothbrush and I threw it away.
Oh,
Yeah, immediately. Yeah. Stop it.
no.
Stop it.
Ugh.
That's like
Anyway.
like if you had grounded her, I would have understood. Like I'm
You should tell her to use toilet paper.
I want to save her life. I mean, she doesn't need to do that. Like that's not a good choice.
I walk into the bathroom and it's like in her mouth and she's super proud of herself for like
Aw,
brushing her
that's-
teeth. And
yeah.
so I'm not want to dissuade her.
I know,
I
I
want
know,
her
I
to
know.
know that I am also proud of her for brushing her teeth. And it's like the big adult sized toothbrush. It's even like it's a big one. And
Yeah.
there's the whole it's like her entire mouth. And she's like, look at me. And I'm like, wow, this is so great. Wow.
Yeah, you might as well have cleaned the toilet with it.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I'm probably overthinking things. I mean,
No.
but still. That made me very, very uncomfortable.
No, I don't
and
want
probably on purpose. He does it one time and that's enough. Then he does it again. He holds it on there. And I'm thinking, what are we doing here? Why are we watching anybody put anything in their mouth that's drilling?
I feel better though about that now because Daniel and I just send a movie where there's two people that just meet for the first time at a bar share a drink, and we both like went to town on that. We were like, no,
No. It's gross.
and now I feel less weird about that. So good.
It's amazing. The utter convenience. Like, they may as well have... Chief O'Brien may as well have had a copy of the script in his back pocket as he hands the little book of everything you're going to need to know
Oh, I had
to
that, yeah.
Nog, which has the complete, like, fake plastic cover, like, graphic on top of it. But I'm like, here's everything you need. And, like, he can have that at Starfleet. Like, he'll have computer access. He doesn't need it in pad form. That is 100% for this adventure. Also, like, anyway, it's stupid. That it was 100% plot
And I
convenience.
know e-readers did exist before Kindle, but I still was watching that going, wow, they like invented Kindle on Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
They
Because that's what
absolutely
it looked,
did.
Yeah.
They invented the
But
iPad, the
e-readers
Kindle,
have been around
everything.
since like the 80s at least, if not before. But it's obviously
Yeah.
a very different format than what they are
Mhm.
now.
Jonathan.
Oh, are we back to me? I did have that thing about the book though. That was insane. Like, here's everything you need to know.
So much.
I was just like, I guess we're just supposed to believe that they know nothing, but like, I would think that the Ferengi study like some geography. I just can't imagine like Australia still exists. I think. I don't think it's like gone.
No, it's still there. It's still a landmass. I don't know.
Maybe it's not
I
called
can't-
Australia anymore.
I think it is, but I kind of bought that the Ferengi wouldn't know all of the countries of Earth. I don't know.
Well, and they didn't know
Like,
the
I
term
barely know all
American
the
either, which I
continents.
thought was interesting. But maybe they don't say that. Maybe they just say humans. Maybe they don't classify them because he says we're Americans and he says whatever. You know, like
Yeah.
which I guess
They
he's
do
not
men-
saying. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's not saying he doesn't know what that is. But I don't know.
Yeah. No, I get it. There's definitely something in there. Ambassador.
Okay, my next sin, I already mentioned it, was the smoking. It was so uncomfortable to watch, and I know,
So
like,
this is a sin on us for being former smokers. Is that what this says?
yes, smoking is so
disgusting
bad for
animals.
you.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
It's so
if my daughter ever
bad.
picks up a cigarette,
There's
I'm going to
no
be the
upside.
biggest hypocrite ever and be like, no.
I don't remember ever seeing a scene that had that much smoking in it.
I was prepared to believe that when he lit both the cigarettes, that this was Ira Bear just saying, yeah, this is how much smoking we're doing. And he's just going to like smoke both of them at once.
Like, and I know that the show addresses it, but it is a
Yes,
lot.
It's a lot.
And so the sin
Yeah.
is making me want to smoke.
Anybody that watched Mad Men
That's fair.
knows that everybody was smoking.
It's a lot. But in that first, when they're all watching through like the observing two-way mirror, there's just so
Yeah.
much going
You watch
on.
like
It's an atmosphere.
if you watch old like talk show clips from like the 60s and 70s, like news talk shows and stuff
wild.
like that, everybody's smoking. Like
Oh,
on
yeah.
set, like live
yeah.
on television.
Yeah.
Everybody. Like there's more smoke in the air. You can't even see people. Like there's
So-
just
You know, I
crazy.
sometimes will go into the role play and I play on a server where it's all like in the late 1800s, early 1900s,
Mhm.
and I play as a character with other voice actors, and the the running gag on the server is that when you smoke and like your little avatar is smoking, you talk about how healthy it is. Because at the time it's just like all the doctors are telling you, you know, like smoking is good for you.
I mean, I was born I was born at a time when they didn't tell my mom to not smoke. She didn't smoke because she said it made her feel queasy. But but they didn't tell her not to smoke when she was pregnant. She could have smoked that entire time. Nobody would have said a thing.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have been any different, but I'm still just as dumb. But
we have lived through the era here locally where I've lived through restaurants going from smoking to non-smoking restaurants.
Yep.
Like it's just now starting to be like, oh, you know what? Maybe all the research is right. Maybe this does cause cancer and major health problems. Maybe we should stop.
And I don't know why that made me want, because I will say most of the time when I see people smoking on film or television now, it doesn't. I'm just like,
it was how much it was.
But it was something. Yeah, there's something. It was something about that was very alluring.
It was triggering, wasn't it?
It looked appealing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I started drinking more coffee. I was like, oh, getting the shakes.
Yeah, because because I did want to smoke some when I was drinking, but like once I stopped drinking as well, which had nothing to do with smoking, but I just stopped drinking alcohol, and it's just now I'm like grossed out by it. But then for some reason watching that today, I was like, that sounds good.
It's weird. It was weird. I didn't like it.
No,
it's amazing. Well, you thought that was weird. The thing that triggered me was the history of warp drive across the Alpha Quadrant. It was very triggering for me because they suddenly dumped in a ton of knowledge that I didn't know. So they, Quark confirms that the Ferengi got their warp drive because they stole it. No, they bought it from somebody. They bought it from another species. But then they also mention that his plan is to go to Ferenginar with the shuttle and from that reverse engineer a fleet of warp ships. And the crucial bit is that he says this way we'll have warp drive before the Federation, the Klingons, the humans, the Romulans, everybody. And I'm like,
your mom.
Wait, and your mom. And this is the 1950s. I thought that the Vulcans had warp drive way, way before us. So it blows my mind that within a very small amount of time, the galactic powers all developed the same technology at basically within 100 years of each other. Like, it's so wild because in theory, whoever developed it first is dominating the galaxy. If the Romulans are 150 years ahead of us in technology, we're fucked. They are dominating everything because they're faster, better, stronger. But this kind of confirms that everyone arrived at warp drive and phasers and warp 9 at the same time. And whereas there might be subtle differences, it's just an insane coincidence to me that all of the galactic powers are kind of on a par with each other.
And one of the commenters just mentioned this, but I was thinking about that too. I mean, it could just be this is Quark's perspective.
But then,
I guess. And he's not smart.
But why is Rom not? Like, you would think, not Rom, Nog. You would think Nog would know more about this, or Rom even.
And the episode doesn't tell us that. Like,
no.
That's extrapolating
the Vulcans,
something that we're not told.
We know they had warp drive when we launched our shuttle, right? So when was that?
Yeah.
That was in the 50s?
That was 21. Oh, I know someone's going to pin me for this. It's 2160. Or is it 2060? First contact is 26. Yes, 2063.
Okay, so that's 100 years. It's a little more than 100 years after.
Off, but that's fine. No one's counting.
It's a little more than 100 years after this episode.
Which is, so I would have figured that the Vulcans would have had warp drive for hundreds of years, not just
or had been very
100
close
years
to
before this.
Yeah, I see what you're
exactly.
saying. So we don't know that, but that makes sense. Yes.
It could just be that Quark is stupid. That is correct.
And I feel like in the beginning of Enterprise, when like at the show, when the Vulcans are there, there's other species that have warp capabilities.
Yeah, the Andorians. The Andorians do. The Klingons do. Obviously the Romulans.
Somebody did bring up that in the, I guess, Carbon Creek in that episode, we did find out the Vulcans they had it in the 50s. Because
that's weird because that's an Enterprise episode, which is like 10 years after this. So that's somebody in Enterprise not doing their homework. But I think this is why they're hesitant to make these big statements, and why when they do, I'm like, inconsistency, cannot compute.
Well, in Enterprise, there were like entire species that apparently everybody just forgot about.
Well, I mean, to be correct, like the Xindi, and then TNG basically forgets about the Andorians. But there we go. That's amazing.
Whose turn is it?
It's Jonathan. Anything else, Jonathan?
No, that was. I mean, I don't understand how they get back, but I'm never gonna understand that. And it did feel like a bunch of gobbledygook.
Oh, that was so stupid, wasn't it?
Well,
that was just so yada yada yada.
And I will say the one thing about a weekly episode like that, it is one of those things. Is like they got to wrap it up, so they got to come up with something really quick. And,
Quick.
Yeah.
Super quick.
And just hope we don't think too much about it.
We can't.
No.
Because his idea to stop the warp drive was to ignite the highly volatile whatever, and then it was going to somehow stop them. And then he's explaining it so fast with his mouth prosthetics, with his accent, that I was like, I don't know what is happening here. And Quark even says, I don't know what you're talking about, just do whatever. And I was like, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
That is
Just
exactly how I
don't try
feel.
and explain it. It's fine.
And then it gets to the end, and it's like, you know what? We're going to fly into that bomb.
Yeah.
I'm like, whatever.
Into a nuke. Okay. Ambassador, anything else?
Yeah.
I've got a couple more.
How does the dog situation work? So Odo shows up, kills their existing dog, and hides the body to take it
It's the only
over.
explanation. Yeah, only explanation. He's replacing an existing service dog.
Right?
Odo kills the dog.
Okay. The dog
Or
may be
put
tied
the
up
dog
somewhere.
in
We
a-
don't know.
Yeah, I could have tied
He's
it
now
up.
dead. Yeah,
We're just assuming that he
either
killed
way,
the dog.
it died.
So he becomes the dog, and then just magically there's nobody in the adjacent room watching through the two-way mirror whenever he like morphs in and out of doggy form.
Stay under the window. Just
So
yeah.
I would definitely go. I would try to write some stuff about that if I could. It just the confidence that they suddenly have that they're not being watched.
Well, he does it
Yes.
right in front of the two doctors, and it's like they didn't like react. They were like, "Huh, who's that?"
No, they were out of the room. They left the
No,
room.
at the end, like
later on they do it
yeah, they're just like
when he turns up and punches the soldiers.
Oh yeah, the doctors don't do anything.
They're just like, I guess we have shapeshifters now.
yeah, apparently.
Yeah, they're in like a scientific wet dream at this point. They're just like, yes.
It's
Oh,
amazing.
They're definitely gonna go have some amazing sex after all that. They're already kissing.
are.
I
in
can
the
think
Jeep.
about is your wedding dress.
Like they get into that Jeep and
Yeah.
they're basically already just full on in foreplay.
Yeah, we're
They're
immediately.
so happy.
they're all
They're
of a
just-
sudden okay with premarital sex.
It would
Yes.
it was very confusing. It was very confusing, the dog situation to me. And somebody in the chat also who knows this series far better than I do, and I'm sorry I can't call them out by name because I don't have it up on screen, but they also said that something about Odo shape-shifting into a dog with far more detail than he could for being a Cardassian or something. I think that they were just...
It's such bullshit. Odo struggles with his human form because he's like, I could never get the details right. I couldn't get the ears right. That's why he looks very smooth. I'm like, but you get every fucking hair on a dog right. Like, you just met this dog.
He was the
How did
perfect
you
German
do
Shepherd.
that?
Yeah.
Perfect German Shepherd. So I guess he's become better over time at shape-shifting. Cool. Yeah, that's interesting. On that note, it's always disappointing, and I know there's a special effects limit here, that the incredibly intelligent shapeshifter punches people. I'm like, you can be... I know you can't be a gun, you can't be a bomb or anything with complex moving parts, but you can be a mace. You can be... Just envelop them, like suffocate them. Don't go in and punch them.
Maybe he
It's
was just
so-
trying to
he-
incapacitate them and not
Okay,
demolish.
but do all three at once. You don't have to be limited to a bipedal form. You can punch everyone at the same time.
When you get really into like the Dominion War, that becomes a thing because you're just like,
Yeah.
how are we winning? Like, like
We should
why
not.
do they
The
even need
founders-
the Jim Hadar? Like, I
They
can't
do
like.
not.
So are you saying like he would become giant octopus, eight
Maybe
armed
like
people?
Wonder Twins
Yeah.
activate,
Just
you know,
anything.
whatever.
All I'm saying is 3 fists. That's all at once. That's all of the imagination that it took. Ping, done. Didn't have to be one at a time at all. Because mass isn't a problem. Because we see him turn into an eagle, and we see him spread out, so he can be bigger. I mean, it's exactly why they had to nerf them with the disease. But anyway, that bugged the shit out of me. Just
Yeah, I mean that part
imagination.
of it, yes, obviously how they eventually get them, I get, but I'm saying, how did we even get that far into the war?
Nah, shouldn't. Murdered.
Amazing.
All of us dead.
Amazing.
Yeah, my other ones came down to like the time travel nonsense, so much technobabble, but I think it's extra deliberate because when Rom does his initial technobabble, Quark is like, I would love to call you a genius, but I don't know what you just said. So I think they deliberately go over the top. Ira Bear was very aware of the technobabble in Star Trek. Oh, predictions, Ambassador. I'm so sorry, but your predictions were garbage.
There were no boogers.
Nothing. There were no boogers in this. Although there was kind of like the nuclear booger that was in his ear, that they were sensitive to the nuclear radiation stuff. But
That doesn't.
no.
No. I was going
no
full
boogers.
on
There
like
was
green.
there was
I
ear
thought
sex.
There
Yes.
was ear sex. I should have pivoted to ear sex. Like green booger, green little men
Yeah.
boogers to ear
Yeah.
sex. It's just right there.
Father
should've done
son ear sex competition.
Yeah,
I
and
hate
then nothing.
those words
Nothing
and in
fell
that
over.
order.
Nothing.
Nothing really fell down other than the convenience of science that got them to and from the future. It's bullshit that they get back to the exact right date.
Yeah. Logic
Nonsense.
definitely fell down. That's
Yep.
true.
Pips as well. How many pips out of 4, Jonathan?
4 being the best.
Yes.
3.5.
That's fair. Ambassador?
I would say 2.
Yeah, this is a 3-pipper for me. We got a bit of a spread there, but it's a 3-pipper. It's fun enough. It gets a pass for being a bit whimsical.
It's the high end of fun. It has a
Yeah.
ceiling, but I think it kind of hits it pretty hard. So I think it gets up
Yeah.
there for me.
Maybe
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
just 2. Yeah, 2.5. Maybe.
Yeah.
I'll go 3.
That's fair. Let's do
That's
3.
fine.
One thing you brought up though, Deneé, that I thought was interesting was you brought up City on the Edge of Forever, which is like a much better version of what this is.
It really is. Yeah.
City on the Edge of Forever might be the best. You could, if you wanted to say that was the best episode of any Star Trek series, I'm sure. I mean, that's fine. I get it.
I'd fight you, but I get it as well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't fight you too much.
The big differences here, I think, are like how they get back. I do like the idea that they're tying this into Roswell. I think that's really clever.
I always love stuff like that. I like the idea
Because
what if.
In the other one, it is entirely an alien creature that's just this time god.
Horrible, worst
that
guardian
brings
ever.
them back. There's no other way for Spock and Kirk and the other guy.
Bones.
Yeah,
McCoy.
to get out of the past, except for that they have successfully watched someone be killed and now they get to go home. I like the storytelling in that they had to witness. I don't know why they had to witness this happening, but I guess they caused it. They caused her to die, which shifted the timeline to go the way that it went. And here, nothing happened. The only reason this episode is telling us that a government cover-up is the only reason we don't know about the Ferengi already.
Which fits our current knowledge. It fits our current history. Like, well, it was just a weather balloon, boys. What do you mean? What did we
I
say?
love that throwaway. Well, and that was the whole X-Files thing too. X-Files acted like people. That's all it was just a bunch of people covering up stuff, And it's like at some point, like, how do we cover all this up though? I mean,
it's insane.
Yeah,
conspiracy theories don't work.
Because this one, this is pretty hard to. I mean, it's sci-fi. It's hard to believe anyway. But it's hard to believe that, like, let's say that they're asking us to believe that the government would have had translated conversations with an alien species, and we wouldn't have had any ripples in our time for that.
Someone, you would just hope somebody would.
What truly
expose it.
happened is that Happy Man and Happy Woman are in the Jeep kissing and happy, and they get shot on their way out of the base.
Yeah,
everyone dies.
That
That's
nuclear
what really
test
happens.
goes really wrong and kills everybody.
Because they have to keep the secret, so the only one that survives is the general.
You don't really have to cover up anything, I think we've discovered, because people don't believe facts. So
it's fair. That's also fair. Yeah.
I can show you a picture and I'll just still 47 people will be like, no.
That didn't happen. He didn't show you that picture.
Yeah, that's photoshopped.
What I've always wanted them to do, because of ever since I saw like the Enterprise D saucer section, is that I wanted a time travel story where only the saucer section goes back into the past, and that's why we have UFOs as these flying discs. Like, just close the loop on that whole thing. That's why
clever.
that
UFOs
Voyager
are UFOs.
episode, that 2-part. Are you guys gonna do that Voyager 2-parter where they go back to the 80s or whatever, the 90s?
Future tense? Is it
Future
no,
tense?
What's it called?
Is that right?
No, what's it called? Future's End. Future's End.
Are you gonna do that?
I'm thinking about it.
With Sarah Silverman.
Sarah Silverman,
That's hilarious because that's got that where there's like that photo on the news. There's like that footage of Voyager on the news. Like, how did that get covered up? Like,
how did you bury that? It's literally Voyager. That show's on TV right now.
Tom Paris
So-
trying to act like he's from that era. I don't know. It's
Oh my
There's-
goodness.
there's a
Groovy,
lot
man.
of great and bad in that two-parter.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, that's an excellent transition because next week's episode isn't going to be Future's End, but we are going back to Voyager with Season 5, Episode 24.
Best of both worlds. I'm sorry.
Damn it, Jonathan.
That one I
Season
know.
5, episode what?
Season 5, Episode 24, Relativity, which is one of my favorite Voyager time
I
travel
remember
episodes.
this one.
This is the 7 of 9 episode, Jonathan.
Okay.
It's super
I think
fun.
I know what you're talking about now.
Every time she's in an episode, it is the 7 of 9 episode.
It really is. She dominated those seasons of Voyager. But until then, thank you for listening, everybody. Deneé, I'm glad you enjoyed Little Green Men. Jonathan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Where can people find you and stuff? And tell us about your Bond podcast.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we just finished that because we got through all the Bond movies. But Chris Atkinson and we did a podcast called Gold, Diamonds, and Death, a James Bond podcast. We covered all 27 theatrically released Bond films. So please go check that out. Yeah, and I still write for CinemaSins and all that fun stuff. And then I'm on Twitter at SamLeeMiss13. You can also find me on Letterboxd at SamLeeMiss13. So, yep.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. And until next week, I'm Captain Ian, and I'm off to the Vault of Eternal Destitution.
Oh shit, that's not good for you. It is don't you people have laws from me.
I hope I don't. I was told to listen to what you guys said, but no, I did. If they buy poison, they'll buy anything. I think I'm gonna like it here.
Amazing. And live long and Podsper.
Thanks for listening. Want to connect with the show? Our hailing frequencies are always open through captainspod at cinemasins.com. Like, comment, and subscribe on your podcast player of choice, and be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
I've been here forever.
Oh, wait. Why are you again coming out of the wrong speaker?
You can't contain me.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Jonathan, do you want to be in the middle or do you want to be on the end?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I've been in all parts of a sandwich, so whatever you guys want to do.
More on that later. I want to quickly tell people about how you turned up to a meeting yesterday as Ambassador Deneé.
I did. I forgot to change
Yeah.
my name from just Deneé. So I showed up to a meeting as Ambassador Deneé, and they were like,
Like, Ambassador Deneé?
guys, I do
I'm
a
not a child.
podcast where I pretend
Yeah.
to be an ambassador. We go to space. It's a whole thing. I'm very distracted because Minecraft just did an update and it completely deleted all of my worlds on my laptop that I've been using lately. And so some of like the most active worlds that we have as a family are gone, completely gone. And I did a little search to see if there was a fix for it. And I'm going to try like this one thing to see if it works. But I've already let go that it's probably gone forever.
Yeah.
There is now a Minecraft update that says do not update to Minecraft until you back it up because you could lose your stuff. So I'm not the only one.
It's crazy that people have lost... Like, this game's been out for 12 years or something.
Entire world's gone.
It's crazy that entire worlds could be gone. I think if you've been playing that long, you've probably already backed it up.
I would
but
hope so,
It all
but-
depends when that last backup was.
Yeah.
If you've slipped and not backed it up for a couple months, a lot can change in Minecraft.
Hey, did you hear? So, Deneé, I know you probably didn't watch the Oscars, but did you hear about that guy talking about the thank God my parents introduced me to music instead of video games or whatever? And then, like that.
Oh, what a dick. Sorry.
Do you really think that was dickish? I thought it was fine.
That was
I mean,
a dick thing to say. That was so demeaning. You can like more than one thing, dickhead. Like, that doesn't mean you're a bad parent if you introduced your kids to video games.
I don't think he meant it the way people that like video games took it. I think it was just a comment. I think he was happy for himself because...
He
It's just a weird
did he
soundbite.
attribute his success to not playing video games?
No, he just said, like, his parents really, like, were... I think they were just really big on, like, you know, he wanted to play music or whatever, and they really supported that, and that was just kind of how they introduced him to, like, the
But
arts
why
or
say
whatever.
instead of? Why not just say, thank God my parents introduced me to music?
I don't know. I thought people overreacted.
No, they reacted the perfect amount.
No, because I think in the moment, though, you're emotional and you're just saying things. And I think he is happy that, like, I think he's very happy that he's in music because he does what he loves now.
I'm sure he didn't mean that much offense by it, but it is just because there's already a stigma around video games being a quote-unquote waste of time. I think that's why it stung for the people that are big on video games.
So yesterday I leave the house to go get Iris from school. I get in the car and I turn the car on and I have the music going and I'm hearing this really strange meowing in the music. Turns out the cat was in my car. So that was exciting.
Surprise!
I get the cat out. He was acting really strange. I thought it was maybe because of being in the car and the car starting and moving and it scared him. But
So how did he get in the car?
the window was open. It was in the garage, so the window was open.
I was expecting like this is a dexterous cat with a lot of strength that leveraged the door open and then shut it behind himself.
He's super smart. So when I got him out of the vehicle, the lightning and thunder went off at just that moment, which his name is Thunderstorm. So I thought he would be cool, but he's not. He hates the storm apparently.
No.
So he runs to my door to go inside. So I put the dogs away. And the cat runs inside and I close the door and I leave to go pick up my daughter from school. This is the first time that I have officially catnapped the cat. He's visited a lot, but I've never kept him in the house while I left, so I was feeling pretty nervous about it. I'm watching my cameras. So like when I get to Iris's school, waiting for her to come out, I'm watching the cameras. I'm going back. I don't see the cat anywhere, so I'm just assuming he's sleeping. Anyway, I get back home. It takes me about an hour round trip to get back to the house. Can't find the cat anywhere. Searched for the cat for over an hour. Gave up. And had already let the dogs out in the house because I thought I must have a false memory. He must have ran back out. But no, he was hiding like cats do. And I eventually found him and he was just all huddled up and terrified of the storm, probably, of the car, probably, and of the dogs being out.
Yeah, and of the two dogs that are like just free roaming.
I thought that I lost their cat. I was so scared. I opened every cupboard.
Really scary. That's really scary because you either got to live with that guilt or knock on the neighbor's door and say, I'm so sorry, but your cat is no more.
But so you found it?
I had gone into the laundry room 3 times. On my 4th visit to the laundry room, he was down on the floor, kind of like he would have been hiding behind something, but I had moved that something on my 2nd trip into that room. So he was just
what a dick. Cats are
like
dicks,
puddled
even the
down
nice
there
ones.
on the floor, just completely not moving.
Yeah.
I'm glad my mom didn't introduce me to cats.
Oh, and this morning Iris did ask me about how long they live.
Oh.
And she was saying that she didn't want me to die. And then she was saying she didn't want the dogs to die. And she said, I said, I know that's going to be sad. And she goes, what do you mean it's going to be sad? Do you mean it's going to happen before I die? And I said, yes, the dogs will pass away before you die.
Hopefully.
And she was like, thanks, Ian.
No, I just
wow,
mean...
way to fucking take it dark, man. Wow.
I mean, that's the plan.
You are a twisted individual. I wanted to not, bring that up as a possibility to my child. So I avoided that entirely.
Yeah, totally fair.
So I was going on to a website for the local animal control just to kind of see what sort of animals might be there. Just needing some help, maybe.
Why?
Because I have a problem.
You have 3 animals and a child in your house.
I was told never to ask about this, Ian, and I respect Deneé's wishes.
Thank you, Jonathan.
But we weren't recording at the time, and I know we're recording now. That's the only reason that I acquiesced.
Thank you.
Saving this gold for when we record.
I started getting kind of obsessed with not obsessed, but I just found the videos where they find the dog and it's it's damaged, it's banged up, it's dirty. And then they take it to the cleaner with the vet, and then it gets checked up and it gets cleaned, and you get to see the entire transformation. So I'd watched 100 of these, and they're really sweet. It's these people rescue this dog and they save it. But then all of a sudden the other day, I'm they're filming this dog when it's fucked up.
Yeah.
They're filming it at first instead of helping it.
I'm hoping there's someone else.
How much footage is being taken? I'm just how long is it between when you find this dog and then you're oh wait, I gotta go get a camera. Hold on.
Wait, please stay
there,
depressed.
Stay fucked up.
So or is this do they purposely get the dog dirty?
How do we make this dog cry? Let's workshop this, people.
Okay, what dog would be the center prize dog? There's
The
so
biggest
many
one.
options.
Just the biggest, most inconvenient dog. Just a
Like a Great
Great
Dane?
Dane mixed with a Burmese, whatever that dog is,
Mountain
dog, mixed with Madeline, whatever Madeline was.
Saint Bernard, which is basically a Bernese mountain
all
dog.
of them.
That's it. You can also find. I've also found videos of just insanely huge dogs, and like I had no idea how big dogs could get.
They're huge.
Some of those mastiffs and stuff.
Because I want to dress it up as a targ, or like put the unicorn horn on it from TOS. Complete side note, I can't remember what video I was watching, probably for shorts or something, and I heard a Sin mention tribbles and somebody go and protect the grain because there's a tribble, and I'm like, oh, Deneé wrote on this relatively soon after the Deep Space Nine episode.
It was a tribble situation.
Yeah, I'm happy you're making Star Trek references, like deep cut.
It was a tribble
Not just tribbles.
situation.
This is tribbles going after the grain. That is
what was
specific callback.
Oh, it was on
Can you say the video?
Nice.
Well,
Nope.
maybe not.
Nope. That's why I didn't say it.
Really? It's
Yeah.
not out
Yeah,
yet?
well, somebody's asking me what movie, and I'm like, I can't tell you what
No,
movie.
it wasn't
Nope.
a movie. The one that I did was on a TV show.
I'm sure it's not out yet because we're like 3 months ahead or whatever, 2 months
Yeah,
ahead.
I don't. Either way, if I've been looking at it for shorts.
No, hold on. No. It was definitely
It
a
was
main
a movie.
channel.
Yeah, it was definitely a movie.
Mm-hmm. With some
So-
superheroes in it.
No, now you've lost me. Was it?
Uh-huh.
Well, now you're saying too much, probably. Like, they're going to be able to figure this out.
Anyway,
no, they won't.
moving on,
There's
back
no
into the
way
show.
that anybody could figure it out.
So, the chat's just like, let's go, tell us. No.
I can tell you, it has come out. It was the Marvels.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's only recently come out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So if
that
you,
makes
if-
sense.
Yeah. So that's where
Yeah,
you
that
something
was
saw
about
it.
pretty
Flurkin.
quick. I think that one
Yeah.
got okayed pretty quickly, so I think we just threw it out there. I think that was a pretty quick turnaround.
Ta-da! Now you guys can go watch it,
Well
and you know
done.
that I wrote on it, and that I put it in a Tribbles reference because there is a Tribble situation going on.
Yeah, there is. Well, that's an excellent transition because next week's episode isn't going to be Future's End, but we are going to Voyager.
Oh, what are you doing? Timescape? No, you've done Timescape, haven't you?
Hang on, and that's also not Voyager. That's TNG.
No, no, then it's not Timescape, but the one where Chakotay and Kim, that was the one you had Daniel on, right? Where Chakotay and Kim,
Oh,
like,
Timeless.
Timeless.
Yeah.
so
we've
you're
already
doing a
done that
time
one.
travel Voyager?
Time travel episode from Voyager.
So you're
yep.
doing Future Imperfect?
Nope.
Oh.
No, Future Imperfect is TNG as
Oh
well.
God, I'm getting these all have similar titles.
Yes, they do.
What's the one where they find the museum and everybody thinks Voyager was evil?
Oh, that's a great one, but it's not that, and I can't remember the name of it.
It's like this
What's
is
that called?
It's not called this, but like it's like school project. That's not what it's called, but it's like something. It's like
Evil Museum.
Yeah, it's like
it's
The Vault
Fate
of Eternal
something.
Destitution.
no, what is
it's
it?
an
Living Witness.
Living Witness.
Living
It's
Witness.
an amazing
Yeah, thank you,
episode,
chat.
Deneé. Though, like it's these other like it's a species, right? They have like this Voyager museum, and it's like all painted that Voyager's like this military ship.
They
and it's
find a
really
They
cool.
find a backup of Voyager's memory banks, and it's all corrupted, and they make some invalid deductions. But no,
Amazing.
that is
and the
not the right
doctor's
episode.
the doctor's like an evil android, and they have like an army of Borg, and Janeway
Yeah.
is like a tyrant, which she kind
it's
of
a
was.
great episode.
So you know,
Oh, she was for sure.
you guys did do though the one where the Starfleet guys there and the two-parter, was that season 5, the season 5 finale? Wasn't that the one you guys did recently?
For what?
I thought you guys did a Voyager one recently where it's the guy, the captain, like the old Starfleet captain or whatever that Janeway.
Oh, Braxton?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Wait, what? No, we didn't.
Yeah, we watched one recently because he was like the bad guy. And it was when Janeway went all like Rambo.
What are we talking? What?
I don't.
No. What?
We watched
Yeah.
Janeway during the monster one.
Oh, Equinox. Right.
Oh,
yeah.
Equinox.
Equinox.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it that? Am I thinking of the right thing?
No, you're not at
Yeah.
all. No.
I mean, that does happen. She does
Different
meet a
captain.
captain
yeah.
that had
the
been
different
shuttled
captain.
out into the wherever place that's far
Yeah.
away from the whatever stuff.
No, Captain Braxton is the one that's in Relativity. You're thinking of shit.
No, I'm saying,
the
isn't
Equinox
that the
captain.
episode? Like, isn't that the one? Isn't Equinox like right after Relativity? Is what I'm saying.
Oh, right. I don't know. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. That would be right. Yes, it is.
There was a TV movie in the mid-90s. This was like when like all this stuff was like they were doing all these disaster movies, and there was a TV movie on NBC called Asteroid. It was like supposed to be this big event, and it was terrible. Like it was nobody watched it. It was awful. But I remember Voyager had an episode that had something to do with like part of the episode had something to do with an asteroid coming down, and in the promo for it, it said next week Star Trek Voyager will kick NBC's Asteroid.
Oh, that's amazing.
I will never forget that.
Brilliant.
Because it was so, and I
great.
tried to like find that ad and I can't
that's
find
funny.
it, but I know that happened. Like I had that on a VHS tape.
That's brilliant.
But I think I like the Kazon. That's a good answer because they're idiots. They're like they're like even dumber Klingons, which is kind of what they were pitched as. Was like Voyager was like, let's just have our own version of Klingons, but they're dumber.
It's just no. I'm so glad they ditched them so much.
Well, they had to because they were in it too long.
They
like
were. You've been
they
traveling
had
for
to get out
2
of
years.
Kazon space. Yeah,
How big is
Like,
Kazon's space?
because Basics is like the season 2 finale.
Yeah, it's the season
so it's
2
like,
finale.
way too long.
Insane.
I hate that I know that. By the way, I feel.
No, you don't. You love it. That's because it's the episode where Suter meets his end, and he's a frigging great character that is underused.
Oh yeah, the Brad Dourif character.
Yes.
Yeah.
The homicidal
Yeah,
Beta Z.
Yeah, but that's also one of those things. Like that was a really interesting idea. Like, what if you had a killer on Voyager? Like, what do you do with it? You can't just put him in. But then they just kind of killed him off. So
Oh, they just
I was like,
turned
well,
him good.
That storyline's over.
Yeah, that's done.
So the first one's up is Josh is saying Jonathan versus Moopsy, who wins?
Oopsie.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah, Moopsy
that's
wins.
not
Yeah.
even like I don't fight. So I would just give up.
Would you just like
Just
lay down
eat
and let
me.
it just
I'm
like,
way too lazy. Like I just
Would you try to like dive in head first so it's over
I'm-
faster, or
yeah.
would
Yeah,
you just
take the head first.
I'm
Yeah.
I it's fight or flight, but with me it's fight or lay down in the fetal position and
Okay.
hope for the best.
Moopsy versus the Americans? Ian, who wins?
Moopsy. Moopsy wins. Unless they can nuke it first, but I think then that still kills the Americans.
That's true. This was really cool from Saruthi, who said, I loved the Nog going to the Academy storyline. Spock and Worf were the first of their species in Starfleet, but they'd already been there a few years when we meet them. The culture shock of the first joining is an interesting take.
I agree. I remember that stuff
Yeah.
being interesting.
That's really cool. And I didn't know that because there is also then maybe something between that exchange of like Worf and Nog sort of like over the dental thing when they sort of like lock eyes and have something in common. That's another thread for them, is that they're the first of their species. I didn't know that. Great
Yeah,
comment.
it's
Thank
really
you.
cool. It's really, really cool. I do have a couple that were sent in by Sci-Fi Brony, who couldn't join us in the live show. Sin, Quark loaned cousin Gala money, ? That seems very un-Ferengi, especially without an enforceable contract to keep cousin Gala from avoiding his half of the agreement for 10 years. So the episode could have been avoided if Quark had been a bit more Ferengi.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of get it. Seems very generous, doesn't it? And there's no like, there's kind of a spoken promise that Gala will pay him back at some point, but it's definitely not a. That would 100% be a contract that Quark would have. Put in
Oh
place.
yeah.
Here's a comment from CDR Smith. This is in regards to their audio message from last week, which ended in a red alert, and I was very concerned about their ship. I'm at a diplomatic function and cannot fully attend the debrief. I just want to assure the ambassador that we are all fine on the USS Seaborg. The red alert was for an unstable planetary crust sample nearly taking out the science lab.
I have so many questions about sending that episode of the USS Seaborg. Starting with the name.
I love it. Seaborg.
So great.
It's so good.
Seaborg are terrifying.
What a great
Borg
message.
mermaids. Borg maids. Merborg.
Okay, we've got a ruling request from Flyboy. Is the Bell Riots callback from the ROM's guide pad blatant fan service or poignant and clever callback, or both?
I think the answer's both, to be honest. So immediately in my head, I couldn't remember exactly when that episode was. And for a brief second, I was hopeful that this episode took place before past tense, before the Bell Right stuff. So Nog just comes in, shows us a picture of Cisco in the past, and that's it. And we don't find out until later in the season that he goes back in time when that happens. But then I realized that episode has already happened by this point.
Yeah,
so
it was in season.
It's a little
3.
callback.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So it's probably unnecessary callback.
Sin removal of the bell writes continuity was on point, but also Sin, if there were pictures, someone would have noticed that before now.
Well, that's
You'd think,
yeah.
wouldn't you?
I mean, that's they even mentioned that in the episode where he's like, "Oh, guess I'm in the books now," and then they're just kind of like, "Eh,
Guess I'm in the history book.
yeah,
Especially since it's an event that they know about.
yeah."
Here's a fun fact from the show. General Denning is played by the late, great Charles Napier, who also played Adam, the lead singer of the Space Hippies in the TOS episode The Way to Eden, a.k.a. the episode only Dave likes.
I forgot
It's
about
not a
that,
great
but yeah, when
episode.
you say that, I can picture him very
Totally different character
Yeah.
as well. Like night and day.
Charles Napier is one of those guys, though. He's in a lot of he's that guy in a lot of things. If you go back and look, you'll be surprised at how much stuff he was in.
I just watched Philadelphia yesterday, and he's the judge in
Yeah.
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So I was like, what are the odds? There he
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, he's in a lot.
Another Sin, gold is good, says Quark. But in Who Mourns for Morn, when Morn's Latinum turns out to not be inside the gold bars, Quark says, all that's left is worthless gold. The Ferengi view on gold is inconsistent.
mean,
Great
that's-
callback.
welcome to Star
Yeah,
Trek.
That's a good point. I mean, they're making comm badges out of gold. That's how worthless it is.
Mm-hmm. Odo is actually very, very killable. Like, if you just know where that bucket is, he would be very vulnerable.
We'll just put a lid on it.
yeah, yeah.
Just put a lid on it in a heavy book.